Number 1.
Colleen was last seen at her family's home in Clearfield, Iowa, during the evening hours of October 5, 1975. Authorities believe that she disappeared sometime during the overnight hours. Colleen has never been heard from again. She was reportedly last seen at home and disappeared sometime during the night while her father, a law enforcement officer, was on patrol. The exact circumstances are somewhat murky, however. Many sites say she went missing from Bedford, but people who knew her seem unanimous in stating that she lived in Clearfield. It can be a challenge, when reading internet comments, to determine which are accurate and whether people are who they claim to be. Unfortunately, Colleen's case is one example of a case where such comments are about the only source of information. In reading the comments on the official Iowa State Missing Persons site, there was a comment from someone claiming to have been best friends with Colleen. She states that Colleen was not at home when she disappeared but was with her family at an out-of-town event. There are comments from friends insisting there is no way she ran away. Then there is a comment from someone claiming to be Colleen's brother, specifically saying that she did run away during the night, from home, not from an out-of-town function. I have no reason to doubt these commenters are who they say they are, and they are telling what they recall, but I feel the need to stress that some statements are not 100% confirmed, and they can't both be right. My feeling is that they were honest in what they recall, though. There is really no information about who Colleen is. Was she streetwise? Did she have any reason to want to run away? A boyfriend or an interest in a boy? Did any of her belongings disappear with her? For a time, Colleen was believed to be the subject of a photo found in the possession of serial killer William Bradford. The unidentified girl in the photo bears a strong resemblance to Colleen for sure. Colleen's father was convinced that Colleen was the girl in the photo, but has since changed his mind. Personally, in spite of the strong resemblance, I don't think it's likely. Bradford's known victims are all from Southern California, and he lured his victims by offering modeling sessions to women he encountered in public places. An abduction in the middle of the night just doesn't fit, nor does a victim in Iowa. I hope she was a runaway and that she is living her life somewhere.
Number 2.
Groff was last seen by her husband near Westview Avenue in Hubbard, Ohio at 7:30 p.m. on July 4, 1977. She lived with her family in the 300 block of Westview Avenue. At 10 p.m. that day she was speaking to a friend on the phone when she ended the conversation abruptly, saying, "They are coming up the driveway, I have to go." Billie's husband, Edward, and their 2 children were out that evening, attending a 4th of July celebration. According to her husband, they did not arrive back home until 11 p.m. Billie was not there when they returned. It's not known who, if anyone, was coming up the driveway an hour prior to her family's return. Billie did not take any belongings with her, and her husband reported her missing 2 days later. At the time, searches were conducted in wooded areas and lakes. Authorities received a tip that she'd been seen walking in a daze at the end of Westview Avenue. According to a former neighbor, law enforcement dug up an area of the Groff's backyard, but nothing was found. It sounds as though Billie heard a vehicle coming up the driveway and assumed it was her family returning home. Whether Billie said this as an excuse to get off the phone or if her family returned home prior to the time Edward had stated is not known. Prior to her marriage, Billie Lynn Science Ilo graduated from Farrell High School in Pennsylvania. She was a cheerleader as well as a member of the Future Nurses Club. A post on the Crime Watchers forum describes a claim from Billie that her husband was abusive and that neighbors believed he had killed her that night. I have no way of verifying the source, but this person also mentioned that the Groff's yard had been dug up. That can be corroborated by another internet posting. Since the yard being dug up has been mentioned in more than one place by different people, I put a little more weight on it. If they searched the yard, it implies that her husband was a person of interest. That kind of lends credence to the idea that he may have been abusive. I am guessing that their children were too young to remember much of that night, and I hope their mother can be found for them.
Number 3.
Charles Koch, age 19, vanished from Ravenna, Ohio on July 14, 1983. He was last seen in a trailer park as he completed his paper route. 2 children stated that they saw him speaking with a Caucasian man in a blue compact car. The man has not been identified, and Charles never returned home. There is very little information available in his case, but given the scenario, it's possible that very little is known by anyone. There is no mention of the exact location where he was last seen. It sounds as though the children, who were likely residents of the trailer park, did not know the identity of the man in the car. This would likely suggest that the man was not a resident of the park who just happened upon him. The next question would be why he was in the park. Did Charles know him? Would he have been visible from a main road as he delivered newspapers within the park? How far was the park from where Charles lived? Did he know people in the neighborhood where he was seen? How did Charles carry the newspapers? Was he driving or on a bicycle? I realize it's likely that he was on foot within the park, but how did he get there? Had he finished his deliveries when he vanished? After reading the minimal details available, my initial thought was a stranger abduction. I just can't see the likelihood that someone unknown to the resident children would just happen upon him inside a mobile home park. I've seen no media articles at all, though it's possible they exist but aren't archived online. Unfortunately, disappearances of teens and young adults were, and still are, assumed to be voluntary by law enforcement. It's been 35 years now, and Charles would be 54. I hope his family can get some answers.
Number 4.
Leichia Reilly, age 21, was last seen in West Seneca, New York on January 31, 1985. Leichia had gone out with friends on the evening of her disappearance to the Pierce Arrow, near Seneca Street and Center Road, a popular place for dinner and dancing. She arrived with a female friend, and she danced and had a few drinks. When her friend was ready to go home, Leichia decided to stay, telling her friend that she would find a ride home. She was last seen leaving at 3 a.m. in the company of Daniel Rose, who was an off-duty state trooper at the time. He was later the leader of a bricklayers union. He may have been driving a blue Chevy Camaro. About an hour later, Rose returned alone and rejoined his friends at the bar. This would have been 4 a.m. What time do bars close in New York? Leichia's parents became concerned later in the morning when they realized she'd never come home. Police questioned Daniel Rose, who denied having been with her and would not explain why he had missed work the following day. He then hired a defense attorney. 10 weeks after Leichia's disappearance, Rose was fired from his job. It is not known whether his termination was related to his refusal to cooperate in Leichia's case. In the winter of 1986, police received a tip indicating that Leichia's remains were put in a dumpster. They spent 2 weeks during a winter blizzard searching the Chaffee landfill, but found nothing. In 1998, Rose was charged with DUI and obstructing government administration. He reportedly attempted to kick an officer and threatened him and his family. It's also been discovered that Rose has a lengthy history of abuse toward women. Leichia attended Mount Mercy Academy and Buffalo State College. She hoped to become an artist or writer. Someone has published a book about Leichia's disappearance. I have not read it, but it appears from reviews that the book is more a psychic numerology reading than an investigative account or memoir. The author did apparently know Leichia, though. I hope she can be found soon.
Number 5.
Perkins was last seen at her apartment in the 1900 block of West Astor in Phoenix, Arizona, at approximately 10:30 p.m. on September 10, 1975. She and her fiancé went on a dinner date that night, and he saw her go inside her apartment and flashed the porch light. She has never been heard from again. On September 17, her yellow and green 1969 Oldsmobile Cutlass with the Arizona license plate number PHR 281 was found abandoned in the area of North 51st Avenue and West Bell Road. There was no sign of her at the scene. Her yellow and green 1969 Oldsmobile Cutlass was found a week later in a secluded area near North 51st Avenue and West Bell Road. Kristina's ex-husband is a person of interest in her disappearance. He and Kristina had reportedly fought recently. Following her disappearance, he stated to her sister, "Your sister's dead. If anybody asks me about her, I'm just going to tell them she died of cancer." Her former husband has since died and was never charged in connection with her disappearance. Perkins was employed as a dental assistant at the time of her disappearance. Her parents have since died, but her sister is still alive and hopes for answers in her case. Foul play is suspected in her case, which remains unsolved.